Hi there. Welcome again to Avvanz webinar series. In this webinar, we are going to talk about background checks specifically in Singapore, where there could be some difficulties in doing certain checks. So we always get queries on these, and I'm going to be talking about how can we navigate through these difficulties to still being able to conduct thorough background checks on individuals. A quick intro of myself. I'm the co-founder, managing director of Avvanz, and I have years of experience in background screening. And Avvanz has a gold medal winning background screening platform, which is where you will be able to order checks and get a lot of information on checks specific to different countries. And we cover about 150 over countries. I've spoken on these topics in various conferences, television shows, and other media as well. In case you're interested to know more about it, we can always direct you to these links. A quick one minute on what we do as a company. In addition to doing background checks, we also use AI to vet resumes, to aid recruiters. And then we have mobile technologies to onboard employees really quickly, get them productive really fast, and then continuous training and development, a lot of digital based training as well. Now that there's COVID-19 virus, a lot of them would prefer a virtual learning environment, and we help you to build that as well. Based on my experience, we have seen that in every 10 resumes, at least about 3 to 4 of them have some form of discrepancies. So you really need to know who you hire. If you get a wrong person on board, that could affect your reputational, financial damages can be incurred, and worse security damages as well. So now it's really, really important to hire, to really know who you hire. These are some of the high-profile examples. I'm sure you've watched the movie Catch Me If You Can, where you would see the lead actor changing jobs, high-profile jobs, high-risk jobs, just because he wasn't background checked properly. So it's really important to verify who this person really is, and that's where we will come in to help you. So now let's dive into details, which is where the devil is, into screening itself. So the process of it is like what I earlier said. We cover 150 work countries. So, and your individual could have studied, worked, lived in any part of the world, and we'll be able to do the background checks. So we can see criminal. There's a whole list of checks, finance checks, identity checks. Of course, you don't do all checks on everyone. It's going to be really expensive. It's I would say you balance costs versus benefit versus risk, and then you also have the education checks, employment checks, which take a little bit longer. But again, with our online platform, we'll be able to cover all these checks in less than 15 business days, by and large. There's always a question of how do we do the education checks. So in the one of the EduDoc shows, I actually showed how a certificate can be vetted. So we actually vet them, or we verify the authenticity of the certificates directly with the university. It could be in any part of the continent, any part of the world. We will be able to check that for you. And that's how we do the education checks, because education certificates is one of the most problematic ones, whereby we see high faking, because now for less than $5 you can make a really authentic copy of an educational certificate, which would you're not even be able to tell the difference. In fact, we all know background screening is a really complex project, because every country has their own country-specific compliance framework, their own personal data privacy framework. Like in Asia, every country has its own framework, and then you have the GDPR for the Europe. In the US, you have the FCRA. So it's very important that the processes, which are really complex, really hard to do, are done in a proper compliant way, which is where Avvanz comes in to help. And like what I earlier said, wrong hires could actually cause financial damages, security damages. And a Gallup study also shows that background check candidate or an employee tends to stay with the company for a longer period of time beyond a year, which is of course very good for your staff attrition issues. So overall ROI can be proved to be more than 100% due to the value extracted from avoiding losses to the wrong hires as well as reducing turnover. Now let's see how we can order these checks, and let's also at the same time answer the questions respective to some of the checks that we always get in our inbox. So this is Avvanz website. So let's just go into the Screen Global right away. So this is how HR screen will look like once they log in. You'll put in the candidate details, what branch they belong to. If there's any pre-populated packages that we would have created for you, that can also help so that the checks don't have to be selected a la carte. So this is where it tells you how the checks are done in different countries. So since this webinar is a little bit more specific to Singapore, so let's just look at Singapore. How do we do criminal checks? So we all know that it's really hard to do here because we will not be able to retrieve any data from police or court, right? So that's a given. Unless the subjects go to the Singapore Police Force website to obtain their own eligibility for spend record. But of course, some companies have seen that people have sort of modify the documents, and you can't really tell because again, like what I said, there's a lot of sophisticated techniques to copy certificates or any documents. So what we do is we go to named sources like the following to get as much information as possible. But again, our recommendation is don't just stop at criminal check, extend it to civil litigations, global sanctions, and if possible, adverse media as well. So what does civil litigation do in that case? So let's just talk about that. Before that, very quickly, global sanction. So this is like an Interpol check. It's a value for money check because it's only one check for the whole global worldwide. And it covers various bodies, money laundering, drug trafficking, sexual offenses, politically exposed persons. All these are very important now. So it covers all that. So that's what it does. And of course, there's also a continuous monitoring mode. For an extra $10, you get a complete 12 months coverage. But all these prices are retail prices for walk-in customers. So of course, discounts can be discussed. And then let's look at civil litigation check. If you look at that, so that for Singapore, so that's how we do it. So the description talks about pulling it from the commercial civil courts. And of course, this, if let's say the person has lived in another country in the same period of time, then we could actually add another country as well. So for example, if I add Netherlands, and then you'll see that the description is a little bit different. So based on where they have worked and studied. So and then adverse media is another recommendation. But again, adverse media is all about your public media footprint. Like if you put my name Kanan Chetia, you will see there's a lot of media coverage. But if I've said anything negatively, that will come up in this. But I would recommend more than this, a social media check, which I think is a lot more important now that everyone has a social media footprint. So this one would cover Google as well, right? Along with other social media. And we'll be able to cover all these derogatory indicators, which are really important. So you really know who you hire, because a lot of the time, companies or your clients, your suppliers will only want to work with you after sometimes vetting your profiles, and they might see whether this guy is a good guy to work with. So people go to social media. So it's really important that you have a clean social media record. So when a HR needs to do a background check on an individual, you decide we can sit down with you and based on your industry, explain to you what are the specific checks you want to do for your specific roles, because you're not going to do all checks for all roles, right? And then we can create packages so that let's say there's a high risk P&L account owner, or is a finance person, that could be a high risk person, and then those checks will get specifically populated, and then from then you can go ahead. But again, just to give you a little guidance, let me share this slide with you. This is, for example, the BFSI industry, banking, financial institutions, as well as insurance. So these are probably highly regulated industries, and you would see that the kind of checks that you need to do differ by the different rules. Again, this is just a suggestion, but it does give you some idea on how would you do checks for different roles in your bank or in your insurance company. And based on that, we could actually give you a report, right? Let's just also look at some financial checks, right? So you have your bankruptcy, like in Singapore. How would you do a bankruptcy check? So this portal will tell you straight away. So it is with the Ministry of Law, Law Insolvency Office e-services, and bankruptcy orders have been annulled or discharged for 5 years or more. You will not see them, but undischarged bankruptcy reports will actually continue to remain in the um, public search database. So an individual is discharged from a bankruptcy despite not paying target contribution in full after 9 years. Those will have the name on the bankruptcy record permanently, right? So this is all how the bankruptcy check is done in Singapore. And then we also get questions on credit. Again, Singapore credit check is really hard to do unless the individual does it himself or herself. But we can at least show your payment rating, so which is what I think probably you want to know. And then you have the MAS financial regulatory check as well. So let's look at that. So this one is more of with MAS itself, like in Hong Kong, we have the HKMA and all that. So these are how the different checks are done for financial checks. And then for insurance industry, sometimes they want to have the individuals go through drug and health screening of. So that's something we do as well. This is a check which we recently announced and launched. So this is more of an analysis of a biological specimen, could be urine, hair, blood, oral fluid, to determine whether you have specific drugs or not. So that's something we cover also. And once you've ordered the background check, select the number of years and some specific questions you would see, candidate will get a welcome email. Of course, you also can enter the details on behalf of the candidate. And when candidate gets in, again, if some companies don't have applicant tracking system or HRMS, this could be a free system for that. So candidate will be able to enter all the necessary details. So let's say in this case, he chose Australia. The Australia specific criminal check forms will automatically pop up. So once candidate fills up all that, what happens next stage is ready for processing cases. And here you will be able to view the card and see whether you want to check out or not. So take a look at the card, see the checks, all good, and then you check it out, it becomes an order. The moment it becomes an order, that's where it goes into processing ordered cases. You can monitor the checks real time. So some of the checks could have been completed earlier. You don't need to wait for the full 10 to 15 business days. And once the report is completed, it will go into the completed orders tab, and then the work is done, which is where you'll be able to download the final report, which has been QC'd, and you'll get a trigger. And once you download the report, your background check is pretty much done. So that's the whole process of ordering from the creating a case stage, going to the welcome email for the candidate, processing for you to check it out, order for you to processing orders, and then what is completed orders. So the whole flow, this is how it works. And this is how you do specific checks in Singapore. If you have any questions at all, you can always reach us. Drop us a note at consult@avvanz.com. We'll be glad to help you work out or map out a background screening strategy to strengthen your recruitment further. Thank you very much.